You know, every single day, we create something like 2.5 quintillion bytes of data. That is a number so huge, it's almost impossible to even wrap your head around it. But what if I told you that hidden inside that absolute hurricane of data are the answers to some of our biggest questions? Well, in this explainer, we're going to explore exactly how we can find the story in the data. Okay, let's dive right in.
Right. So, that's the central challenge, isn't it? Finding that story, that little signal of truth. It's all about cutting through the overwhelming noise to find what's real. And that's the exact puzzle we're going to tackle together, looking at the tools that turn all those raw numbers into actual, genuine insight.
Because at its core, data analysis is really just a powerful way of asking these fascinating questions about the world and, using evidence to find the answers.
I mean, just think about the kinds of questions we can ask. How does your morning run actually translate into calories burned? Or what really makes that one video game so addictive you just can't put it down? And hey, think bigger. How can a whole city predict which of its bridges need repair before a disaster strikes? These are the kinds of real-world problems we can start to solve with data.
I love this quote. It perfectly captures the spirit of it all. Data analysis is an adventure, right? It's like you're digging for treasure, but it's not always easy. You gotta have the right tools, and you have to be willing to get your hands a little dirty. But for those who are up for the challenge, wow, the rewards can be absolutely immense. So, if we're gonna go on this adventure, we're gonna need a toolkit. A really powerful, flexible tool that can help us navigate this whole world of data. And for countless scientists, researchers, and analysts, that tool is R.
But R is so much more than just a programming language. Think of it as a way to have a conversation with your data. You can ask it questions and it'll answer back, not in words, of course, but in these powerful calculations and stunning visuals that reveal the stories hidden deep inside the numbers.
And the journey with R is usually a three-step process. First, we visualize the data. We make charts and plots just to see what we're even working with. Then, we model it, using statistics to uncover those hidden relationships. And finally, and this is crucial, we share our findings by crafting a compelling story that really brings the data to life.
Okay, now this is where the magic really happens. Let's see how R takes what looks like a totally foreign language and turns it into pure, simple clarity.
At first glance, this might look like a bunch of really intimidating code, right? But I want you to think of it more like a recipe. Each line is just an instruction telling the computer what ingredients to use, in this case our data, and exactly how to prepare them to create something delicious and informative.
And boom, here's the result. All that complex-looking code has been transformed into this simple bar chart that tells a really powerful story. We can see, just at a glance, that the South has the highest illiteracy rate. That is a clear, actionable insight that was completely hidden in the raw data until right now.
And that's the whole point, isn't it? R is basically a translator. It takes these tables of abstract numbers that are really hard for our brains to process and turns them into a visual story that we can all grasp in a single look. Now, making pictures is a great starting point, but it's not the end of the story, not even close. The real power of R lies in its ability to help us answer big questions and actually be confident in our conclusions. Let's see how.
So, let's say you found a pattern in your data. Maybe you've noticed that your sales seem to go up every single time you run a particular ad campaign. But here's the question. Is that a real effect, or is it just a coincidence, just random chance? Well, R gives you the statistical tools to help you find out for sure.
Now, this is really interesting. What you're looking at here is a map of the 4 possible outcomes whenever we test an idea. We could be right, of course, or we could make one of 2 big mistakes. A false positive, where we think we found something that isn't really there, or a false negative, where we totally missed something that is. R gives us a framework to navigate this, to minimize our chances of making one of those mistakes. Okay, so you've explored the data, you've found a pattern, and you've tested it to make sure it's real. The final, absolutely critical step in this whole journey is to share what you've found with the world. And this just illustrates the point perfectly. Look at the difference here. On the left, you've got this messy, raw computer output, and on the right, a polished, professional report. With tools like R Markdown, you can make that leap, creating documents that are not only easy to read, but also easy to understand. And that makes it so much more likely that your findings will actually have an impact.
And this is so important. This isn't just about making things look pretty. When you present your findings in a clear, transparent way, you're not just sharing information. You are building trust with your audience. You're showing them, hey,
My conclusions are based on solid evidence and sound reasoning.
And this brings us to a really big and powerful idea that's actually changing science itself. It's not just about one person's discovery anymore, but about building this shared, verifiable body of knowledge for everyone.
This quote introduces us to something called reproducible research, and it's a movement that is truly changing the face of science. The basic idea is that when you share your findings, you should also share the data and the code that got you there. And tools like R are what make this all possible.
So why does this matter so much? It means science stops being a series of closed-off black boxes and becomes an open conversation. Anyone can take your work, run the analysis for themselves, check your findings, and then build on them. It makes the entire scientific enterprise more reliable, more collaborative, and frankly, a whole lot faster.
Ultimately, what tools like R really give us is the power to interrogate reality in a structured, honest way. In a world that is just overflowing with information, the real skill isn't just collecting data anymore. It's having the curiosity and the tools to ask it the right questions. So, the only thing left to consider is, what will you ask?